One more play to bleed the clock down, and then you would expect punt it. Johnson makes a cut. Forget about that. Johnson, first down, slides down, and the Washington Huskies are going to win the final Pac-12 championship and punch a ticket to the college football playoff.
There have been some pretty incredible screw-ups in the history of negotiations. There has been Dennis Schroeder leaving $84 million on the table and then settling for $5.5 million. There was the European powers handing over Czechoslovakia to the Big H. And then there was Zuck getting out of his buddy Savrin making a cool $520 billion from Facebook. Hell, even the Bible has Esau selling his birthright for a bowl of soup. There have been some pretty crazy screw-ups, but maybe none as funny as the story behind how the Pac-12 rolled over and died just a few years ago. And no, I don't care that they added Boise State and Utah State.
Who you got in your group of five?
So I had Boise State until they named Amy Schumer their starting quarterback.
So let's dive into the hilarious story of how the Pac-12 shot itself in both feet. I'm going to shock you and immediately give you the reason for the death of the Pac-12. Ready? Money. I know you would have never guessed that would ever be the reason problems were created. Yes, it is the reason, but that really isn't the whole story. Saying money is the reason for the death of the Pac-12 is like saying Jeffrey Epstein died from not enough oxygen getting to his brain. It's correct, but there are some factors that got him into that position in the first place. The death of the Pac-12 starts with this guy, Larry Scott. He was some nerd who played tennis for Harvard that was given the job of commissioner for the Pac-12. What were his qualifications, you ask? He had none. He was in charge of a tennis league and then handed the job because he had Harvard credentials. Guess what also comes with having Harvard credentials? A head so big that the size was the only thing from stopping it from being permanently up his ass. Larry thought he was a badass and decided, I don't know anything about college football tradition. What if we took every team from Texas and stuck them in the Pac-10? So he tried to rob the Big 12 of Texas, Texas A&M, Texas Tech, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, and Colorado. You would never guess it, but Scott didn't know a single thing about what he was doing and didn't understand that Texas actually has tradition and a love of football and was not very happy all their schools would be taken except for Baylor. The governor of Texas, Rick Perry, said no dice and denied the schools from leaving the Big 12. Like the spoiled prep boy he is, Larry stamped his foot and took Colorado. Good thing old Larry wasn't a gambling man because his investment in Colorado would not pay off. Colorado became the doormat for the conference immediately, boasting one season with 6 wins in the 12 years of their membership. He also took Utah, which would end up being the man's league getting the nuclear missiles launched on Rockwell, Maine.
That missile is targeted to the Giants' current position. Where's the Giant, Mansley?
Well,
Larry took his newly renovated Pac-12 conference and signed a deal with Fox and ESPN, but he had more lofty goals for the conference. He had the genius plan of using his vast empire of schools and their many sports to create his own TV network, a super network where he could use football, basketball, and a historic Olympic sport program to create a TV empire. He said, screw your deal, ESPN and Fox. I'm taking my product to cable and satellite. That's the future.
what are you, retarded?
Well, that didn't really work out, and between the Pac-12 networks bringing in almost no revenue and Larry's lavish lifestyle, he was out of a job by 2021. In comes George, the new Pac-12 commissioner. If Larry Scott was the Oppenheimer of building the worst model for modern college sports, then the dropping of the bomb was when Texas and Oklahoma fled for the SEC. Larry's successor, George Kliavkoff, had quite a mess on his hands when he took the job. The first solution, the Big 12 presidents were panicking and were ready to jump ship and make a super conference, the Pac-20. All George had to do was convince the schools already in his conference that was a good idea. Entering into our story is another dumbass, the president of USC, Carol Folt. We've seen some pretty stupid decision making so far in this mess, but Carol wasn't just stupid, she was pompous and haughty and stupid. Without even hearing out any of the arguments for the Pac-20, she dismissed them and cited that she did not want religious schools to have any association with her school and that USC was too prestigious to be in the same conference as a bunch of land-grant schools.
You're being kind of a bitch.
Well, just a year later, USC and UCLA would take the money and run to the Big Ten. This would leave the Pac-12 scrambling for a piece of the TV money without two of their schools. Georgie came to the remaining school presidents and showed them the most likely their conference would only be able to get a TV deal with ESPN or Fox that paid each school somewhere in the mid-30 millions. The presidents didn't want to hear that nonsense. They wanted the SEC and Big Ten money because they thought they were just as good.
Here's the thing.
Fine.
Listen, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm kind of retarded.
Well, the exclusive negotiating window with Fox came and went, and all that was left was the offer from ESPN, $30 million per school. Guess what these presidents did? According to Armen Keteyian's book, ESPN got laughed out of the room. In enters Utah, pulling one of the funniest negotiating moves in history. Funnier than the cast of The Sopranos begging LeBron to come to New York. Funnier than the Clippers giving their entire 2020s away to the OKC Thunder. And funnier than Michael Scott's paper company holding Dunder Mifflin hostage. This one took the cake. Utah's president, Taylor Randall, with a doctorate in operations and information management and a resume of running the Utah Business School, with zero experience in sports or media, created his own media rights model. Their model spit out a calculation that the conference should be valued at $50 million per school. Naturally, all of the genius school presidents jumped on that number and would not take ESPN's $30 million per school. This time, it was ESPN's turn to laugh. They told the Pac-12 to kick rocks. When pressed on how Randall came up with that number, he couldn't explain how he came up with that number.
I mean, if there's some sort of retarded Oscar, you would win hands down.
Thanks to the geniuses who made such moves as trusting cable and satellite in the 2010s, refusing religious schools, refusing to associate with the schools of the Big 12, and pulling models out of their buttholes, the Pac-12 was now dead. I bet those presidents are real glad Larry brought in Utah all those years ago. Thank goodness it all worked out in the end. Now the Pac-12 is a collection of Mountain West schools and Gonzaga, cementing themselves as a must-see product every football season. If you're going to screw up big. If you're Stanford and Cal, that screw-up is going to cost you a reduced share for 10 years in your conference. If you're USC and UCLA, you'll be run over by the good teams in the Big Ten for the rest of time. If you're Utah, you get to have your ass kicked by the BYU Cougars. The future of college football appears to be a race on who can get their bread up. The quicker you can stack money, the quicker you can get a consistently winning program. The funniest part is going to be watching these schools with a poor tradition of fandom lag far behind the pack. No one from California gives a damn about football. No one is going to be signing and paying the checks to get USC or UCLA up to par for the grind of a Big Ten season. Colorado's never going to have enough of a donor base to pay anyone other than Dion. Washington has to suit up with a QB that didn't even want to play with them because they're so broke. The only school that appears to be set up to function in this world is Oregon, but they can't seem to get over the hump. All I know is, with how much our culture is nostalgic for even the most mundane experiences, we are guaranteed to have these California teams get in their feelings and start sending you up texts to their old pals in Oregon and Washington and Arizona. We might even see a cute little reunion. Can you imagine it? Just a few schools huddled around, cooking up barbecue and sharing stories, and then someone blurts out, "Can you guys believe we tried to use that Utah media model?" It'll be a cathartic experience for everyone.